The wildest thing that ever happened, it actually didn't happen at this agency. It happened at a previous agency when I was in Alabama, and we were having to re-underwrite our entire homeowner's book of business. So I had to go out to a very nice neighborhood and re-underwrite this house, and so couldn't find it. Finally had to ask a neighbor where it was at, and they didn't have a mailbox. It had been knocked down. So I had to go up to the house, and honestly, it was the worst house in the neighborhood. It was a little sketch. And knocked on the door. It was like a very NOLA type house, so it had like an enclosed front stoop that was like locked by a gate. And so I'm knocking on the gate, trying to ring the doorbell, and nobody wants to come. And so I'm like, well, I'm just getting out of here. This guy comes out, and he, no shirt on, shorts on that are like stained. And he is just like Coke bottle glasses and just mumbling, wanting to know why I'm there. And so I had to tell him, who I was, what I was doing there. And so he's like, all right, well, I'm busy, just come in and, get it done. I was like, sure, no problem. So he unlocks the gate to let me in, and I walk in the door in front of him. And as soon as he closes the door, he turns the lights off to the house, and it's completely black.
What?
Oh, yeah. Craziest thing I've ever seen. I literally thought that like he was going to tell me to put lotion on my skin, like Buffalo Bill or something. I was in like Silence of the Lambs.
Holy moly.
So like, I go like, whoa, what's going on? He's like, oh, don't worry about it. Just, he flips the lights back on. I don't know what he did. And so I was like beelining it to get to the backyard so I could take pictures of the back of the house. So I got out there, took pictures, and I was like, man, I am not going back through that house. So I go around, try to get out the other side of the gate. Well, everything is locked. I mean, there's no way to get out of the gates. There's no way to get anything. And so I was like, oh my God.
Maybe I
might have to go back through the front of this house. And so I literally I'm all right. I've got my pictures of the back. I'm going to the front. I'll take the pictures. I'm good to go. And he just kind of yells at me, all right. So I walk to the front, and he has locked the front gate. So I couldn't get out the front door. And so I was like, oh my God, this guy really, he's about to get me. And, but he doesn't. He actually comes out there, unlocks the gate. And I mean, I'm talking about, I'm high stepping it, getting into the car. But it literally was that probably 10 seconds of like total pitch black felt like 3 minutes. I thought I was a goner. But yeah, that's about the craziest thing I ever had happen.
That is insane.
Yeah. So I'm Jamie Bragg with Binders Insurance Group out of Carrollton, Georgia, and I am a teledude.
Insurance dudes are on a mission to escape being handcuffed by our agencies.
How? By uncovering the secrets to creating a predictable, consistent, and profitable agency sales machine.
I am Craig Pretzinger.
I am Jason Feldman.
We are agents.
We are insurance dudes.
Boom!
Boom!
Dude, that is incredible. I thought that you were going to say, and then he said, do you know where you are? You're in the jungle. You're
going to die.
Ripping on some bar cords.
Wow.
Yeah, it was creepy.
Describe your emotional state when the lights went out.
Kind of like the feeling you get when you jump out of the back of a plane. You just know you're going to die, right? You just know it's going to happen.
You were like, I've now accepted my death. This is it. This weird house.
Yeah. But he flipped the lights back on, thank goodness. So.
How weird. I wonder what that was all about.
And to be honest with you, it was a very, very nice neighborhood. And this obviously was just one of the sketchy houses in there. I guess that's why it needed to be re-underwritten.
Strange.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, I'm not going to any more houses.
No, I was done after that.
Oh, so good. So, Jamie, let's dive into what got you into the insurance business. What was life like before that, and what was the catalyst that brought you into the insurance business?
Wow. I actually wanted to do insurance. It was strange. Most people never say that. Out of college, I had a bunch of economics courses that focused on it. And about the only interviews that I could get were for life insurance companies, solely life insurance, and it was going to be commission only. And I just really didn't have the guts to do it at that point in time. And so I had done political science in college. So I actually ended up working for who ultimately became the insurance commissioner of Georgia. Just ended up kind of falling in my lap. I ended up getting on with a guy that was opening up a big red agency down in South Alabama. And so I went to work with him, and we did pretty good. He ended up getting his contract. I wanted to stay on with him. And but at that point in time, State Farm was not appointing anybody down on the Gulf. They had appointed somebody in the city where I was going to go. And so I said, well, I'm going to go independent. I had a guy that I was friends with because at that point in time, we had a percentage growth we could write. So we could only grow in fire, which we call fire homeowners, by like 3%. So I was sending business out left and right to everybody. I'm like, good Lord, why can't I write any of this? We're just writing tons of cars, can't write any homeowners.
Why?
Cat exposure. So this was, Ivan. So, we were limited on what we could write in homeowners. And so we were just referring a bunch of it out. And when
that's crazy.
Yeah. So when I didn't have a spot, I said, well, I'm going to try my hand at going independent. And so I did that and loved it, but had some things go on, ended up being with an agency that got acquired by Arthur J. Gallagher, and just really didn't fit at that time. So went back captive, and ultimately I'm from Carrollton. So I wanted to come back home and have my own agency. And so fell in my lap that State Farm had an opportunity in Bremen, which is about 12 miles from Carrollton. So I took that over in 2014 and did that for a while. And the independent itch just never left me. So, we kept trucking along with State Farm and it was great. But ultimately just, y'all are in the same market that everybody's in. It's become a little bit of a hard market. And me and my wife have been talking about it for a while, that it might be an opportunity to switch because she actually is in this business too. So she's had an agency since 2016.
Oh, and, cool.
So I decided to jump ship and go work with her. I say with her. She probably says for her. I choose my battles.
Wow. I didn't know your wife had an agency. That's so cool.
Mm-hmm.
With the State Farm opportunity, was that hard to let go?
It's hard to let go of the money that was just rolling into my checking account every month. But I will say it was not hard to let go in the fact that I do love to produce. And I'd just gotten to the point of where I was really complacent and we just weren't growing at a level that we used to. And I don't know, my heart wasn't in it really, So, but yeah, I tell you, when you go from that check hitting your account twice a month to walking out the door going, hey, I've got to figure out how to recreate this. It's a nerve-wracking feeling.
Right. Yeah. And then also trying to figure out how to not just have the job that you were doing, right, where you're doing all those things plus a whole bunch of other stuff, right? So that's that balance, like shifting to the ownership mentality.
Yeah.
What was the earliest big win as an agent that made you just say, I love this. This is the way to go? And I doubt it was when the lights got turned out.
No, it was not it. So when I left and went independent then when I was working on the coast, I decided, and it kind of fell in my lap. I had this gentleman that he was a private client, pretty much private client group through like AIG. And I was like, man, I tell you, I can do this. I understood the product and really started going after a lot of high value personal lines clients. And ended up getting this one guy that had 4 or 5 houses spread out through a couple of states and a plane. And I mean, I think all in all, he was probably $70,000-$80,000 in premium at that point. It might have been more than that. But that was the big win where I was like, well, this can be something good. So I enjoyed doing that. It's a lot easier to find some of those customers sitting down at the beach with, $1 million homes there than it is at Carrollton. But that was the first big win that told me I really wanted to continue doing this.
So you've been in multiple agencies. What is your team like now? And what kind of teams have you been a part of and have you grown with?
So relatively, they've all been small other than one. Most of the agencies that I've been with have been under, 5 or under. They've always been personal lines other than one. I was a part of, and that's the one that got taken over by Gallagher. I was with an independent firm that they were the largest condominium association insurer on the coast. So back then they were around 315 condominium associations. So we're saying the big 20-story at the beach condos. So there were around about 315 and they insured maybe 130 of them. And so there was about 15 or 20 people there and it was huge. It was one of those things where, you write one of those condos and everybody's high-fiving and celebrating. You lose one of those condos and then somebody gets threatened to be fired.
Right.
They're big.
Yeah. But that's tough.
Yeah, that's tough.
You get the big premiums. It is so exciting, but then it's like, they're going to leave and then that's not going to be great.
Yep. But my State Farm agency, we got as large as 6, had a bunch of cubicles all stacked everywhere. That was interesting. And then now there are 4 of us.
Cool.
So
how's that set up? Do you have a bullpen or is it offices?
it's offices right now.
Offices?
I've still got the cubicles. I threatened to bring them out, but nobody's jumping on board.
So we don't even have cubes. So a bunch of people IntelliDudes or whatever came out to my office a couple of years ago, and so they know, but we have like a bullpen. So they're all jammed in this area. COVID, we kind of spread out a little bit because I didn't want to get in trouble, but they didn't want to be spread out. Like, so it's interesting because once they get used to that bullpen thing, they really like it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of energy.
Our problem is the noise.
Well, if you have the right headphones, then they don't hear the outside noise and the mic doesn't pick up the noise. So it doesn't sound like a scammer call room coming from India or whatever.
Well, these days, after COVID, really, you have to second guess how much space you really need. You don't need that much. Heck, if you run out of space, you just send somebody home and say work remote.
Yeah. Yeah. And I have 2 now that are remote and it's working out pretty well. So we'll see how that goes. Much easier to hire, but how about the culture? Like, what have you done to create that culture in your agency? I'm assuming that it's pretty tight.
Yeah, the culture's good in that we're all friends. I will say probably my weakness is producing a really good culture. I'm one of those people that I just put my head down and just beat up the phone or work too many hours, and then I'll look up and try to figure out if everybody's happy or upset or not. I'll say this, really being a part of IntelliDudes and having the Slack channel, I think has helped out our culture a lot because we're all more engaged in trying to create a motivating, positive environment. So I'll say that definitely does help out. Other than the fact that I still feel like we're running like a boiler room with all these leads coming in, everybody on the phones. But that's the one thing that we're trying to do is just beat up Slack, stay positive, congratulate each other when we have a sell, and it doesn't hurt that we use agency Zoom. Every time you have that sell, that explosion of confetti goes off. And so
it's you get real confetti too. Shoot it at them.
I need to do that. I need to just get a gun and just fire it at somebody, blow it up, and that'll bring the enthusiasm.
It doesn't take much to to get the team going, and I agree with you when it comes to having something like Slack, because that's how we communicate now a lot more, right? It's through texts and stuff like that. So just having the team and little emojis here and there, it creates more of an engaging environment. It's a little thing, but it's kind of a big thing.
No, I agree. Anything that can keep I look at it, anything that can keep the camaraderie and conversation going without anybody actually standing up to come walk in there to talk to you,
right.
That's a positive, because the last thing I want is you standing up there trying to, shoot the breeze with me. I'd just shoot me an emoji on Slack and let's keep going.
And it's crazy too, because talking about COVID, that was the first time I realized we didn't know when we were going to have to pack it up, and all of a sudden one day they're like, okay, pack it up, you got to go home. And it was we were up and running within 2 hours, and everybody was at home, business as usual, no change at all, no negative change within numbers, our KPIs and stuff, and no change in behavior because of Slack and all the tools that we were using, because I guess we operated more like a remote agency at the time, unknowingly, and
my people were begging to go back into the office during COVID. We were the most dysfunctional remote agency on the planet, even though COVID aside, it was a horrible thing, but we made more money in 2020 than I had made since 2017. It was unreal. Everybody was at home. I wish we could go back to the day where everybody was at home and we could just blow up the phones again.
Just go to Wuhan and then come back and call on everybody. Yeah, it is remarkable. As much as everybody complained about 2020, I have yet to find many business owners who are still in business who have negative things to say about the finances that resulted from 2020.
I agree.
I mean, that's when we launched Teledudes. That's how everything grew. Our agencies it was big. It was very helpful to have people home because our contact rates went up. It's interesting though. We learned so much through that time that we were able to fine tune and get fairly close to the same level of those contact rates afterwards. We have pretty solid contact now.
Yeah, I wish that I would have had Teledudes back then. I mean, we were so inefficient at following up on leads, and even though at State Farm you wouldn't have been able to implement that strategy, just because there's too many compliance things that would have thrown you off. But with the first time that I heard the podcast and what y'all were doing, it was like a light bulb went off, and I was like, oh my God, that is what I've been searching for forever. How in the world do I implement it? And it was like, nope, you can't implement it. Nope, you can't implement it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do something where I can figure out how to implement this.
Yeah. Well, and even at State Farm, I think there's enough ways that you can get around it.
You just don't want to get caught.
Well, yeah, I don't know.
You just can't have anything installed on your computers, right? Is that the deal?
That's right. Yeah. I mean, if it's not their software, you cannot have it installed.
So you can't even have Slack.
Mm-mm.
That's so crazy. So crazy.
Well, when you house more data than the Library of Congress, they want to make sure that nothing slips out.
Right.
Yeah.
But you have everybody has a cell phone.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, and there are ways, because I mean, I tried to do it before I actually pulled the trigger this time to do it. And I don't even remember who I spoke to. Like, I think there was a lady, Haley or something, and she and I were trying to game plan how in the world I could get this to work. And I couldn't figure it out. And she was like, well, you can bring in additional laptops or cell phones or ways to try to do it. But
I mean, the only thing is Slack, right? I mean, that's the big issue.
Yeah, I mean, because you really don't need. I mean, because phone burner and all you're doing is
that's
just
web.
Yeah, it's just transferring the phone call in. So that's not really a big deal. But at that time, I thought it was, because I thought we were supposed to have like seats on phone burner and all that kind of stuff. No, that's not the case.
Right. Yeah, that's where some of our messaging.
Yeah, because I really did. I mean, even when I pulled the trigger this time, I thought that I was going to have 4 seats on phone burner, and Laney was like, no. I mean, that's not anything what you have to do. So
right. Yeah, I guess maybe that's a messaging thing on our end.
So let's talk about your recruiting process. How have you brought people into the agency historically?
Historically, I always used, we had a deal with a vendor called Career Plug, but it was always piggybacking off of Indeed, and then LinkedIn, and then there was another one, ZipRecruiter. We used that, and it used to be so easy. I promise you, coming into 2020, it was the easiest thing in the world to find just hundreds of resumes to try to get people. But then after that, it was like literally everybody became a ghost. And then mainly it was, more, if we were going to recruit, it was from an existing team member that we were trying to get them to send over somebody that they knew. It really just cut down on, well, it's kind of like, having to put so many people through the pipeline in order to get one to show up for an interview and then to move them forward to hire. So we just kind of started using our existing team members to recruit their friends. Right now, we're at, if y'all could reach through the computer and slap me, you probably would when I say this, but right now I'm not recruiting. It's really because we kind of have a family affair going on right now. So it's highly likely anybody would leave, but it's always possible. But really the only recruiting that I'm doing right now is just talking to people about what I'm doing. If they seem interested, we're carrying on that conversation. I haven't posted anything on Indeed or anything like that.
My experience has been that when I take my foot off the gas on the recruiting, it puts me in a very dangerous position if somebody does leave.
Yes. No, it did with me.
And you never know.
Well, yeah. Well, you pretty much this. I mean, and I say nobody would ever leave, and hopefully they don't. But you say you never know. You always know somebody's going to leave. I mean, it was it's inevitable. And
right. I just mean you never know when.
When they're going to leave you, they're going to leave you when you're on vacation, or leave you when you've got something big that's got to close, and the most inopportune time is exactly when it's going to happen.
I mean, they will go to lunch and just never come back.
I actually had that happen before.
I have too.
Yeah, just got up and said, I'm going to lunch, never came back. And I was like,
yeah,
it's rough.
It's a classic, really.
It's interesting. Why not just say something? But, it's people are funny.
Yep.
We're a funny
Just wanna
animal.
go.
Funny
Okay.
animal.
I just saw that tactic on 90 Day Fiance. Have you guys seen that show?
No,
Oh, it's the worst. It's really not good. It's not good. But like my wife and I will watch it. But like, so it's all about, and this is a total side tangent, but it's all about somebody, you know, from different countries, and they either come over here or they go over there, and they have 90 days to get the visa, and they have a long distance relationship, and they got to be together. Saw this one the other day, and they're like, she goes to like Colombia to meet her future wife, and then they go shopping for a food truck, and then all of a sudden, like in the food truck, she's like, I didn't think this out very clearly. And then she's like, what? And then she's like, yeah. And then all this is excuses about her having to go home. Then she goes home and she doesn't ever come back. That's a big time. That's a big time lunch break version. Side tangent. Sorry.
I'm going to go down to Colombia and grab whatever you grab down there, and grab a Pablo Escobar, and see you later.
Exactly.
All right.
Wow.
Side tangent.